So first off, I do like to to clarify with a quick definition is what I'm trying to say. Seiki. Sound healing is one of those healing terms that gets tossed around and applied in vastly different applications. That said, in the case of sound healing, it is meant to be a catch-all term. It does include everything from the Western therapeutic practice of music therapy to the stereotype of Native American shaman with drum and rattle. Really, the simple definition of sound healing is just the intentional use of sound vibration to heal the body either mentally, emotionally, and or physically. It does not matter how that sound is produced as long as there's that healing intention behind it. The vast majority of the adult population of planet Earth, whether you realize it or not, are practicing sound healers. At the very least, we all have that favorite song or CD we'd like to listen to make ourselves feel better. Emotional sound healing. For those of us who've been lucky enough to raise children, we've attempted to make a melodic sound to soothe the crying baby. Emotional sound healing, but also physical sound healing. We really are trying to take the ouch away. Now, the way that's at its core, the way that sound healing works basically boils down to two aspects. The first one is the power of sound in our psyche, that calming effect. The reason I put calming in quotes is because it does not have to be calming music to be sound healing. As a teenager, I listened to a lot of Linkin Park because it was angsty. It was a cathartic release for those emotions. So if you zen out to death metal, hey, it works for you. Now, but just that power of sound on our psyche is the first way that sound healing works. Now, they've actually done some EEG studies, some brainwave studies, and scientifically shown that a continuous, monotonous drum rhythm at about 180 beats per minute actually forces the brain into theta state, that deep meditative state where the body taps into its own healing potential. The technical term for that is entrainment. You're entraining the brain to a specific state of consciousness. Now, with most types of sound healing, we're not so much entraining the brain into theta, but we are still making it easier to stay in theta. Here in the West, we still have that lingering misconception, to be meditating, I must be thinking of nothing. No, that nothingness, or nirvana as it's sometimes referred to, is actually either the end result, or in a lot of cases, a byproduct of the end result. The way you get to that point, you have thoughts. It's what the brain does. Yet, in the meditation world, there's a reason why we refer to those thoughts as mind chatter, because they do tend to distract our conscious mind away from the meditation, pulling us out of that meditative state. In sound healing, basically what we're doing is providing a stimulus input for the conscious mind to focus on, but in that focus, there's nothing for it to do. Think of it like the pinwheel of death on your computer. Your conscious mind's sitting there spinning, but not doing anything. It's occupied and out of the way, so it's easier for us to stay in that theta state. Now, the second way that sound healing works is through the vibration itself. Sound is a concussive wave. It is literally the air molecules slamming into each other. Essentially what we're doing in sound healing is we're exposing the body to an external vibration. When the external vibration goes away, the body resets back to the original healthy vibration. Again, think of it like rebooting and restoring your computer to factory standard. We're resetting the body. Now, obviously, if it was that simple, we'd all be in perfect health. What's complicating things are the toxins. Now, whether or not we pay attention to them, we all know the physical toxins. Chemicals, pollutants, allergens, pesticides, viruses, blah, 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 blah. The ones we forget about are the mental and emotional toxins, the thoughts and feelings. A toxin is anything that causes our body's vibration to go off. The actual etymology, the origin of the English word disease, is actually dis-ease, a break from harmony. That is not just some cliche us woo-woos like to say because it sounds great. It's the actual origin of the word. Our ancestors realized that illness comes out of the fact that our bodies are off in some way. Now, the good news is, particularly in the case of sound healing, with that concussive wave, that sound vibration itself is very effective in clearing things out and getting things flowing again. Now, I do always like to really emphasize that flowing, because the thing to keep in mind is that flowing can manifest in a very literal, physical way, one end or the other. Luckily, you all know where the bathrooms are, right? In other words, it is technically possible to have a purge experience. Now, part of what today is about is actually not just talking about sound healing as a whole, but more specifically incorporating Reiki and sound healing together. One of the benefits of combining the two is I hardly ever have that full purge experience from people. The Reiki helps to basically, let's say, modulate the experience. So it's not so overwhelming that it pushes you that far, that takes you that far that you have to full purge. Now, yes, a little nausea, that does happen. It's the body readjusting. Hydrate, 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 hydrate. Have I mentioned hydration? Keeping the body flushed as we're releasing that stuff is always really helpful. The other thing I always really remind people of the importance of when doing any kind of healing work is nurturing yourself. I always like to remind people, there's a reason they call it comfort food. However you nurture your body, do that. I'm one of the people that's a little different. I take a little different approach of, instead of, the way I describe it is there's a common practice in spirituality of physical deprivation to achieve spiritual advancement. Don't do this, don't do that, give up this, give up that. Okay, sure, long term, maybe, but I say in the moment, do what your body needs. I'm going to be the person that says, if the way you chill at the end of night is to have that nice, nightcap of tequila, go for it. You know your body, you know what it needs. Nurture yourself. If it's have that slice of German chocolate cake or that wonderful strawberry cake we had yesterday, go for it. Feed the body. Really love yourself through that healing experience. The other thing is with that, it's a discussion my wife and I have fairly regularly around that time of the month, is just because you have a reason for your attitude does not mean you don't have to say sorry. Yes, we do need to make those necessary apologies, but the key is to not berate yourself for having that human experience. As part of the healing process, we become more sensitive to things. Things are more triggering for us. Acknowledge that, love yourself through that experience, and if need so, make some necessary apologies and amends. But to really nurture yourself through that healing experience. Now, for me, actually, the good news is drumming, for me, because it's something I grew up doing with my dad, is really nurturing. It's fun. So I do kind of focus a little more on drumming in my sound healing, because nostalgia, basically, I guess you would say. But whatever sound works for you. Remember, the world's first instrument, and I'm not going to sing because not my gift. But the human body is the first instrument. Use it. And that even includes humming and moaning. That's still sound. There's a reason why we tend to moan when we're in pain. It's a kind of a soothing activity for our brain. Do it. So, talked about sound healing kind of in a general sense. The interactive part is a nice way. Drumming is one of those things that it's very instinctual for humans. Now, I'll grant you may have two left feet when it comes to dancing, but I promise you have rhythm. All of us had roughly 9 months of intensive rhythm therapy in utero. Our mother's heartbeat. If you actually look at most traditional indigenous rhythms, they are heartbeat rhythms. Dun, dun, dun. Or pulse rhythm. Dun, 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 dun. If you get lost on the rhythm, just check your pulse. Follow along. It is that simple. Now, so that's one of the things I like about the drum, is it's a nice straightforward thing, and then particularly with the drums that you guys are using, it is a synthetic, completely vegan drum. The benefit to that is it's super durable. Here, I'm going to mute my mic for a second. These things will take a beating and keep going. Don't necessarily recommend doing that with a rawhide drum. You can put your stick through a rawhide drum. But with these nice synthetic ones, they're super durable. I could drop kick this thing and probably do more damage to my foot than the drum. I'm not going to do that because there's other things up here that could break. But so the nice thing is you can play around with these, have fun with them, and not have to worry about it. If you hit the rim, So what? It's okay. Just have fun with it. Now, in a moment here, I'm going to have you guys work on each other. So there are some things to keep in mind for comfort. When Michael used to do a lot of these presentations before we developed our Reiki drumming class. And at one of the presentations, he learned the hard way of the importance of being very clear in his instructions. And so part of that instruction is to remind people, be gentle with people's ears. We don't need to play full volume to get an effect. Now, as this goes on, the vibration fills the room, but even with that little bit of play, I'm guessing the front row felt at least a little something. Even a soft drumming still has effect. You don't have to go full force. The other thing is, remember I mentioned earlier about entraining into that theta? It's a continuous, monotonous rhythm. Other words, not heartbeat. The other thing, has anyone here not heard the expression about throw a frog into fire, it jumps out, throw a frog into boiling water, it jumps out, slowly turn up the heat and never leaves? Part of what that expression is talking about is our adaptability. In other words, crescendos are your friend. Now, when I first, a few minutes ago, when I just wailed on that drum suddenly, it was probably pretty jarring for you guys. But if I were to have done, I was playing just as loud, not even maybe even slightly louder there, and it wasn't as jarring. Because I was giving, now, probably would do a little bit longer crescendo normally, but that's as I say, is we are able to adapt. So remember, you don't have to play full power, try to play a little softer. Always be mindful of how close you are to the ears, but also use crescendos. Crescendos are your friend. By the way, does anyone here not know what crescendo means? It's a musical term, so I always forget. Crescendo basically just start softly and get louder, or start loud, get soft. It's basically the gist of it. A fade effect is another way of saying it. The other thing, to back up a little bit, is I was talking about protecting the ears. Colleen, do you see the headphones back there? All right, so back there I have I have 3 pairs of noise reduction headphones. I meant to bring them up and I forgot. Basically, think earplugs. The headphones are the same thing you'd use to operate heavy machinery, that kind of stuff. They muffle the sound, keeping it from getting loud enough to trigger sensitivities. The great thing about sound is it's not the ears processing the experience. It is the whole body responding to that vibration. I've actually been fortunate enough to work with several deaf people, and I'd say in some ways they almost got more out of the experience because they weren't distracted by the background sounds. They were just in the experience of the vibration. So as we're playing and stuff, if it does get a little too much for you, at least for the first 3 people, we have the headphones back there. Please use them. If you plan on incorporating sound into your practice, working with clients, my suggestion is buy a few pairs of headphones. They're a couple bucks at the hardware store. The only reason I don't say earplugs that go in the ear is because the whole sanitary thing. Yes, you can buy bulk bags of those, but or you get 1 pair that you just use over and over and over again. That's why I say the headphones. But something to help with that sensitivity factor. On that regard, also I should double check. Has anyone here not heard crystal bowls, metal bowls, or any of that before? So everyone's heard a crystal bowl before? You haven't? So it's going to be this one. There's the mountain. If a bowl was likely to trigger someone, it would be this bowl. Any issues with that? Okay, we're good. But again, not a big deal. If we do have sensitivity, it's because we can use the headphones and then it's not triggering that sensitivity. But I always almost forgot to check that before we got going more. The other thing to keep in mind with the sensitivity that I did forget to mention is, again, going back to that, as part of the healing process, we become more sensitive to things. Actually, with this one, because we're recording, normally I would kind of walk around the space when I do the meditation later to make it a little more immersive. But with the broadcasting, I think I'm just going to do it from the front of the room. But at any point, if the sound becomes a little much for you, I would say if you haven't already, grab a pair of headphones. The other thing is, if you want to kind of raise your hand, just let me know that's triggering for you. And then I'll do my best to modulate. I don't know if there's going to be much I can do with modulation up here, but I'll do my best to try and soften it a little bit. And by the way, when you're working with each other drumming, do feel free to speak up and say softer. Yes, do that. It's important as the receiver that you're still comfortable. The other thing with that too, so anyways, continuous drumming, soft, louder is not always better. And the other thing is, don't start near the ears, but start, ideally if they were laying on a table, I'd say start at their feet. But since we're going to be standing, so you don't have to crouch way down, I would say, start low midsection before, and kind of fade in to allow it a little bit, into volume before ever going anywhere up, to kind of give those ears as much of a chance to adjust as possible. The other thing that I do is when I'm up near the head, playing a little bit further away. And possibly a little softer too. Again, always just being really mindful of the ears. So I actually like to tell the story is, so now for the quick little story of how Michael learned the hard way, is he wasn't very clear on those instructions. And there ended up being an odd person out who came a little late to the presentation who didn't have a partner. So Michael partnered up with them. Now because they were late, we ran out, they didn't have any more of the 16-inch frame, and had a 22-inch frame drum, which is a lot bigger. In other words, moves more air, so it has more punch to it. As the person was drumming over Michael's body, not only were they not paying attention to what the frame was doing, and the frame was whacking him with the H strike, the person was like, oh, let's drum. Oh, there's a blockage here. Wah, wah, wah. Michael's described it like being pounded on with a sledgehammer. So, softer, continuous rhythms will do the job. And then the other thing of that too, because I didn't actually specify, is be mindful of what the frame is doing so you're not whacking the person. It's not that type of healing. We want the sound vibration, not the concussion. So with that, let's do this. So I'm guessing since there's extra drums back there, everyone has a drum? Cool. Or will about to have a drum? So let's go ahead and pair off if we can. If we have extra people, we can do a group of 3, make it work. But let's try and do pairs. For those online, if you have a drum, my suggestion is to hold the drum just kind of on your lap to drum. Or if you're using a pot, put the pot on your lap and whack it. All right, does everyone have a partner? Or in a group at least? All right. So let's pause on the drumming for just a sec. So I'll do some instructions and then we'll do the drumming. That way I'm not blowing out the eardrums of the people online as I yell. So, you're good. Like I said, they're durable. So, no, they're equally durable, by the way. But I was just saying, we actually took these Remo drums to a drum circle with an after-school program, so ages like 11 to 16. Peak destruction age. With the 22-inch drums, they actually would tag team. One kid would hold it like a shield, as the other one's putting their whole body weight into playing it. Held up fine. It was kind of fun to watch the teacher go. So, like I said, so what we're going to do is just take a short moment, to just drum the person's body. So like I said, I like to start out kind of lower on the body to allow those ears a chance to adjust. And still using that fade. So I'm not going to just start at volume, but kind of barely playing. coming up to, kind of a medium comfortable volume. Now, my knees are still cooperative enough, I can do this. For those who can't, do this. So this is called the sound chamber on the drum. Use the sound chamber to direct the sound. Also, Mike and I are similar enough height, and I have long, weird, gangly arms. I can go up fairly easy. If you're working on someone's taller, if you have shoulder issues or going up like that is not possible, again, use the sound chamber to angle up. And then so I like to start at the stomach kind of area, because why not? And just kind of go around the body as guided. Like I said, if you're over kind of by the head, go a little further away. And then, again, fading out instead of just stopping. If you're playing like this and just stop, there's that, it's like hitting a cliff. Yes, okay, good point. So again, fade outs are also helpful because they, instead of just stop, it kind of just fades it into eternity. Now, for the Reiki part, for those who have the symbols, they're a good way of focusing on the energy and activating the energy of the drum. Draw the symbols on the drum head to activate them on the drum. Now, you're actually good if you want. That's all I need you for, is just kind of demonstrate that. Thank you, sir. Big round of applause for Mike. So, when my dad first started doing the Reiki drumming, his instruction was basically, pick up a drum, start drumming, do Reiki. Now, it actually is kind of that simple. For me, because the way my brain works, for me, I see the drum as an extension of my body. So instead of beaming from the hands like I normally would in a session, or the eyes or whatever, instead of beaming through my extremities like I normally would in a session, I'm beaming through the drum. Again, science, nerdy brain. I basically, if this makes sense to you, I see it as the Reiki's encoding onto the sound waves. Now, if none of that made sense to you, drum and Reiki at the same time, that also works too. So whether it's you're beaming through the eyes, using the breath to carry it, the hands to carry it, as you're, because you're one hand, I didn't talk about this. Your drums are strung a little differently, so they're actually easier to hold in this. But basically, generally speaking, when you're holding it for playing someone else, your palm faces the drum head, and just kind of finding what grip is comfortable for you. You're not squeezing it, because that's going to tire your muscles out, but just a comfortable, secure grip. So I'm not holding it so loose it falls out, but again, not squeezing those hand muscles either. So the other thing I like to do, doesn't necessarily come into play as much on your drums, is I'll tend to have one finger out on the webbing just to kind of stabilize it a little bit, and it just helps with some of the wobble. But again, mostly it's about finding a comfortable grip. For the mallet, hand out, mallet perpendicular to the hand, grab with that pinky and ring finger, and for the middle finger, index finger, and the thumb, you're basically just circling around to create a collar. So I'm not grabbing with those hands, or those fingers, excuse me. I'm just collaring it, creating a circle around it, which does allow for that mallet to wobble. The thing with, if you want to drum for prolonged periods of time, don't be the wind-up monkey. If you do this, you're going to tire yourself out really quickly. Instead, let the mallet wobble and bounce off the drum head as I knock everything over. So this. So I'm actually using very little muscles to move the mallet. Instead, I'm just letting it bounce. If your mallet goes flying, it's okay. It happens to the best of us. The trick during a session, if your mallet drops, pretend nothing happened. Right? Most of the time, they won't notice. It's kind of like in general in a Reiki session. Really, the only mistake you can make is going, oops, I made a mistake. So, yes and no, in the sense of the no being they'll get effect either way. The yes is you can actually use it as a way of modulating the force of it. So with a sound chamber, most of the sound is directed by that sound chamber. So most of the sound produced by the drum is coming out this way. So most of the time, the intention would be to keep the sound chamber towards your target. That said, if they need it softer, by doing the sound chamber away from the target, it does create a softer effect on them. So you're still holding it the same way, you just turn your body, basically. Yeah. Yeah, just like Karen was talking about last night, don't do, weird poses. Use your body mechanics, natural body positions, especially when holding something, keeping those elbows in. No, it wasn't that year you did it. One year I was doing some sound healing sessions, and I didn't use a massage table. I used a normal full-size mattress. Didn't think about how far that distance was to reach a person, and had them laying in the center of the bed, and then was holding this bowl out like this to do the session. 2 sessions in, and I needed a chiropractic adjustment. And that was in my early 30s. So, yeah, make sure you're keeping those elbows in. You notice, like I was saying, with when I was demonstrating my mic, if you can kind of go lower, you're not bending just at the waist. Try and use the knees a little bit. Go as low as you can comfortably go, or warrior pose works too. Yeah. And then the rest of the way, just aim with the sound chamber. So again, working within those body mechanics, yes. So the next thing to do, any questions so far, like how to play the person? Yes. I tend to go down before going up, yes. And again, it's just to give the ears more chance to adjust. I start as far away from the ears, basically, but I'm not going to start down in a crouch because it's going to blow my knees. You can, yeah. It's just the more time you can give the ears to adjust, the better. That's what it boils down to. Yeah. So the question is about going down before going up, and that's what I was saying. It's just the more time you can give the ears to adjust before going near the ears, the better. That's all it is. All right. Any other questions on that playing technique stuff? All right. So let's go ahead. So the first recipient, if you want to go ahead. So when you're receiving, you want to make sure you're in a nice, strong, stable stance. So feet, roughly shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent, and just kind of get comfortable in that position as your partners drum around you. And we're just going to, just take a moment to drum around them. Jennifer? Yeah, oh no, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I'll tell you when to stop though, yeah. And again, for those online, just taking some time to drum yourself works great. then if you just go ahead and fade into silence. Take a little moment of gratitude for the healing that's been shared. So drumming, yeah, where to hit the drum doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Where you hit doesn't really matter. Depends on which drum you have. If you have one of these bass drums, the black ones, the sound is pretty uniform across the head. But on the white ones, you get a bassier sound in the center and a higher sound on the edge. That's all it is. But as far as healing effect, does not matter. So if you go ahead and switch positions. So where the direction comes into play is which way you're facing the drum. So say that's a person. If my drum is facing towards them, I'd go this way. If it's facing away from them, I go that. So it's more about safety as you move. Right, yeah, no, it would be just a safety thing. Yeah. So yeah, when you're walking around, the direction you go is only about safety. In other words, I would say go forward, not backwards. And so again, switching places and begin drumming on your next partner. Next person, I should say. And then once again, go ahead and fade into silence. And I know we have at least it looks like a couple groups of 3. So once you've faded into silence, let's go ahead, switch again to your third person so they can also receive. We don't want to leave anyone out. And then just as soon as you're ready, begin drumming on them. For the groups of 2, one thing you can try out is drumming yourself. For drumming yourself, you're switching the grip. So instead of the palm facing the head, the back of the hand faces the head. You're grabbing the back side of the webbing, so you can then hold it kind of like a shield, basically, and drum yourself. crystals or Reiki Sound Angels. Yeah. And again, go ahead and fade into silence. And as you fade into silence, go ahead and sit down / get comfy, because here in a moment, you don't have to worry about putting the drum away yet. You can just, set it under your chair or by you. Because here shortly, we're going to do the meditation experience. So again, finding a comfortable position, coming into silence. Yeah. Sorry, I just brain farted. So, how many, by raise of hand, how many people felt their drum vibrating even when they weren't playing? So what that is an experience of what is the SAT word for it is sympathetic response. All that means is things vibrate together, which is why sound healing works. That right there is the sympathetic response. That's why sound healing works. It has that direct physical effect. The other thing you're doing with sound healing, particularly with something like a drum rhythm, is with the entrainment is, in other words, you're syncing up cycles. So as you're drumming, like the heart rhythm, all the bodily rhythms are going to start to line up with that rhythm too. So that's what, a lot of the physiological stuff that's going on with that, stuff like that. So the next thing, Robin, I should drink some water. I'm being a little foggy at it. All right, if you'll hit the blackout button on the light board. Yep, there's a labeled blackout. All right. So like I said, the next thing to do is now that you've got the juices flowing with the vibration of the drumming and stuff, in preparation for the gratitude ceremony next, I want to take you through a little meditation, sound healing, Reiki sound healing experience. So first things first is just take some deep, calming, cleansing breaths. And when you're ready, just go ahead and imagine a ball of pure divine love and light, or even a flame of pure divine love and light. Just an inexhaustible source of pure divine love and light floating above your head. And when you can clearly see that inexhaustible source of love and light floating above your head, go ahead and take a big, deep inhale, pulling that pure divine love and light down into your body, down into the very core of your being. And then on the exhale, allowing that pure divine love and light to expand outwards in every direction, through every individual cell of your body, through every part of your energetic field, all the way out to infinity, infusing every part of your being and beyond with that pure divine love and light. And let's go ahead and do that a total of at least 3 times, pulling that pure divine love and light in on the inhale, and then expanding it out on the exhale. Now that we've cleared and cleansed our bodies, making them a nice, safe, loving place for our consciousness, we'll do another breathing technique to fully ground in this moment and in our bodies. This time I'll describe the entire process first, and then together we'll go through it. So this time, as you do that big, deep inhale, imagine everything that is you, the entirety of your existence, your essence, your being, your consciousness, your spirit, your soul, your mind, your prana, your ki, your chi, whatever name you choose to give it. Everything that is you is collecting in the center of your chest. And then on the exhale, allowing that stuff to expand, to fill every little part, every little nook and cranny of the physical body, but no further, just the physical body. And let's go ahead and do that. Deep breath in, collecting in the chest, and exhale, filling the physical body. Deep breath in, and exhale. Once more, deep breath in, and exhale. Fully confident, you're fully present in your body now, looking directly out from behind your own eyes. So in your own time, completely at your own pace, go ahead and start coming back completely and fully into your body on all levels of existence, taking time to wiggle your toes, shake your hips, wiggle your fingers. And when you're ready, if you're laying down, slowly sit up. Take a moment. Take several deep cleansing breaths. Now my suggestion is, I'm going to do a little more spiel part, but I was going to say, my suggestion is, if you can, stay in that position for the gratitude ceremony. If you need to run to the restroom, run to the restroom. But that does kind of help kind of get you in that nice Zen space to then prepare for the amazing experience that is the gratitude ceremony. So if you can, just stay there, actually. So some of the stuff I talked about in sound healing really was just some super introductory stuff. Like in the Reiki drumming class, we spend probably 3 hours on just proper holding the drum technique kind of stuff. So that's just some nice basic stuff to get you started. By the way, if you do want to find out more or get in touch with me, ReikiClasses.com. ReikiClasses, plural.com. The other thing I always want to remind people, in sound healing, we so often focus on the noise, the sound part of it. And that part is very important, yes. So is the silence. Remember, the silence is when we actually reset and integrate the healing that's taken place. So the silence does not need to be anywhere near as long as the noise, but it's important to have that silence to allow the body to reset. So just as you incorporate sound into your practices in your day-to-day life, just remember the importance of silence too. That's still part of the sound healing. With that, thank you all for sharing in this experience, and I hope you have a wonderful day.